It was 3:04 p.m. on a Thursday. The final bell had just rung at Jefferson Elementary in Atlanta. Parents began to gather along the sidewalk, chatting, scrolling their phones, waiting for the classroom doors to open. Among them stood Monica Carter, a quiet woman in a plain navy hoodie and faded jeans. She looked like any other mom, tired eyes, keys in one hand, phone in the other. But she wasn't like the others. Monica had once served 2 tours as a combat medic in the Marines. She'd stitched wounds under rocket fire, dragged soldiers twice her size to safety, and written final letters for the dying. But none of that mattered here, not to the man who was walking toward her. The patrol car slowed as it pulled to the curb. Officer Derek Walsh, tall, pale, and armored in the illusion of authority, stepped out with the kind of walk that demanded people look down. He scanned the sidewalk, then locked eyes with Monica. "You waiting for someone?" he asked, tone clipped, eyes narrow. Monica blinked, confused. "Yes." "My son." Walsh didn't blink. "Got any ID on you?" A few parents looked over. Monica hesitated. "Excuse me." "You heard me. This is a school zone. We've had reports." "Reports of what?" But he didn't clarify. Instead, his hand hovered near his hip, just close enough to make a message. In that moment, Monica knew. This wasn't about protocol. This wasn't about safety. This was about presence, the kind of presence that made a man like him uncomfortable. She felt the old muscle memory kick in. Stay calm, assess, don't escalate. But inside, something was shifting. Because this time, it wasn't on foreign soil. It was in front of her son's school. On American ground. On her ground. And this time, she wasn't about to walk away. Monica took a deep breath, steadying herself. The air felt thick, charged. She could feel the eyes of the other parents on her, some already pulling out their phones, recording every moment. This wasn't just a casual encounter. "Do you have a reason for stopping me?" Monica asked, her voice calm but firm. She'd learned the power of composure in tense situations. On the battlefield, in the operating room. It was all the same. The pressure didn't change. Officer Walsh looked at her, clearly unamused. "You don't look like you belong here," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Are you sure you're picking up your kid?" Monica's eyes flashed. There it was again. The judgment, the assumption. He had no idea who she was or what she'd done in her life. It was a glance, a statement, but it felt like a challenge. She tightened her grip on her phone, her knuckles turning white. "I'm here to pick up my son. Is that a problem?" she asked, keeping her tone even. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked her up and down, as if deciding whether she was worthy of a response. The silence hung heavy between them. Monica's instincts were telling her this wasn't just about her, but about something much larger. The way authority figures had been treating people like her for years. She knew the statistics. She had heard the stories. She had seen it with her own eyes. "I need you to show me some ID," Walsh said, his voice now cold, "and I need to see it now." Monica's stomach twisted. Her military ID, which she'd carried with her every day since her service, was in her bag. But this wasn't about her identification. This was about power. His power over her power to stand her ground. "No," she said simply. "I'm not giving you my ID unless I'm under arrest, or you have a valid reason." Walsh raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated by her response. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching over her. "Don't make me call it in. You don't know who you're messing with." Monica didn't flinch. Her heart pounded, but her exterior remained calm, resolute. She knew this wasn't just an ordinary conversation. This was a test of her composure, a test of her courage. "You're right. I don't know who I'm messing with," she replied, her voice low but steady. "But you don't know who you're dealing with either." The tension thickened in the air. She could see the conflicting emotions flash across his face. Surprise, irritation, then a hint of uncertainty. But he wasn't done yet. He hadn't gotten the reaction he wanted. Walsh took a step back, his hand moving slightly closer to his weapon. It was subtle, but Monica caught it. The grip on her phone tightened even more. She didn't back down. She wouldn't back down. The years of standing firm against all odds, of battling on foreign soil, had prepared her for moments like these. The bystanders had begun to notice the escalating exchange. A few whispered, some pulled their phones out. Monica could feel the weight of their gazes, the pressure to keep calm for herself, for them, and especially for her son, who was about to walk through those doors any moment now. "Do you want me to call my lawyer?" she asked. "Because I'm sure they'll be happy to advise you on what's appropriate here." Monica wasn't playing his game anymore. She wasn't going to let him belittle her. She wasn't going to let him drag her into the same conversation he was used to having with people who wouldn't question him. The ones who didn't know how to speak up, how to stand their ground. At that moment, her phone vibrated. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a text from her lawyer. She glanced down at the message. "We're already on our way." She looked up, her eyes locking with his. "You should know," she said slowly, her voice sharp now. "This isn't going the way you think it is." Walsh took a step back, his posture stiffening. The tension in the air shifted. It wasn't just the power of her words. It was the knowledge that she had the law on her side. And now she had backup. "You're making a mistake," Monica said quietly, but the crowd around her heard. "You're not just messing with me. You're about to make a very big mistake." Monica stood her ground, every inch of her body radiating a quiet confidence she'd built over a lifetime of challenges. As she waited for Walsh's next move, she knew this moment was no longer just about her son or herself. It was about something bigger. It was about standing up to the kind of authority that didn't listen, that didn't respect. It was about sending a message, and she was ready to send it. Monica didn't raise her voice. She didn't move. She didn't need to. She just lifted her phone. With one smooth motion, she opened her camera, turned on the video, and pointed it squarely at Officer Walsh. "This is for my safety," she said clearly, her voice steady, "and for yours." The lens became a barrier, a shield, and it was working. She could see the shift in his eyes, the subtle flinch, the recalibration. The power dynamic was changing, but he wasn't giving up that easily. "You can't film me without consent," he snapped. Monica tilted her head. "I'm in a public place, and I have every right to document a public servant performing his duty." She had rehearsed this line in her head 100 times. Not because she wanted to say it, but because she always feared she might have to. Every black parent she knew had some version of the talk with their kids. Monica had hers too. Only hers came with military protocol, constitutional rights, and the unshakable posture of someone who knew exactly what lines could and couldn't be crossed. And now, those lines were drawn right at Officer Walsh's feet. He tried to regain control. "You're creating a disturbance. I can detain you for obstruction." The phrase echoed through the gathering crowd. Monica turned the camera slightly to show the people around her, at least a dozen now, watching in silence, recording with their own phones. Mothers, fathers, grandparents. A community witnessing a scene they knew too well. "Obstruction?" Monica asked, raising an eyebrow. "For standing on a sidewalk, waiting for my child? For asking why I was singled out?" Walsh's jaw tightened. "You're escalating this." "No, officer," she said calmly. "You escalated it the moment you assumed I didn't belong." Then she took it one step further. Without breaking eye contact, she used her free hand to tap her phone's screen. One number, speed dial number 3, it rang once. "Monica?" a voice answered. "I need you," she said. "I'm 10 minutes out." "Bring the file," Monica added. "The one with the photos from last year." "I already have it." The call ended. No panic. Just coordination. Precise, like clockwork. She knew this wasn't just about one man's ego. This was systemic. And she wasn't just standing up for herself. She was standing up for every time someone like her had been pushed into silence, humiliation, or fear. Not today. Officer Walsh watched, confused. "Who was that?" Monica didn't answer. She didn't need to. The name Carla Mays, civil rights attorney, former JAG officer, and Monica's oldest friend, would mean nothing to him yet. But it would. Just then, the school bell rang again. A stream of children burst out the doors. Monica's eyes scanned the crowd until she saw her son, Miles, running toward her with his backpack bouncing. And for a split second, she almost smiled. But Walsh stepped forward. "Hold on," he said, raising a hand like a stop sign. "I haven't cleared you yet." "Cleared?" Like she was some kind of threat, Monica stepped in front of her son, shielding him with her body. Not because she believed Walsh would act, but because she knew the value of the message, of what it meant to stand between danger and someone you love. "Miles," she said softly without turning her head, "go wait by Mrs. Bennett's car. I'll be right there." The boy obeyed instantly, sensing the tension, his eyes wide but trusting. He'd seen his mother stare down storms before. Walsh opened his mouth, but Monica raised her phone again, closer this time. "I'm warning you," he said. "No," she said, "I'm warning you." Her voice was different now, not raised, not angry, just undeniable. It was the voice of a woman who had stood in helicopters full of wounded men, covered in blood and dirt, and made decisions that saved lives, who had returned to a country that promised equality, only to be treated like she had to prove she belonged. But today, she wasn't asking for permission. She was demanding respect. Across the street, a dark grey SUV pulled into the parking lot and stopped hard. Out stepped Carla, briefcase in hand, blazer flaring behind her like a cape in the wind. Monica didn't move. She just nodded once. Carla's heels clicked like gunfire on the pavement as she strode toward them. She didn't greet Monica. She didn't need to. Their bond was understood. Her attention went straight to Officer Walsh. "Name and badge number," she said crisply. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Carla said, holding up her own phone now. "You've engaged in unconstitutional detainment, used threatening posture against a civilian, and have failed to state reasonable suspicion." Walsh stared at her. "I suggest you call your supervisor," she added. Now, for the first time, Officer Derek Walsh looked unsure. The tide had turned, and Monica Carter hadn't even raised her voice. Officer Walsh opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was used to people backing down. That was the currency he traded in. Compliance born of fear. But Monica wasn't afraid, and Carla wasn't alone. As if summoned by the rising tension, more parents began to step closer. Not aggressively, but with purpose. Mothers with strollers, fathers in suits, teachers in their staff lanyards. Some crossed their arms. Others silently held up their phones. The crowd had grown from a handful to nearly 50. One woman, petite with sharp eyes, stepped beside Carla. "I've seen him do this before," she said quietly. "Last fall, to a kid. No reason. Just pulled up and started barking orders like he owned the place." Another father nodded. "My nephew. Got harassed outside the basketball court. Same officer, same attitude." Carla's voice sliced through the murmur. "Good. We'll take statements shortly. For now, stay where you can be seen." Walsh's face had lost some of its color. His eyes darted between faces, calculating. He was no longer just a man in uniform. He was a man being witnessed. Monica stood still, unshaken. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She understood something deeper. The moment wasn't about revenge, it was about revelation. Carla stepped forward again, phone still rolling. "Since you've failed to present probable cause, and you've verbally intimidated my client in front of multiple witnesses, you're now being advised to cease contact immediately or risk further legal consequences." Walsh clenched his jaw, but his radio crackled before he could respond. "Unit 14, status check. We're receiving multiple civilian calls about a possible incident outside Jefferson Elementary." His fingers trembled as he pressed the button. "All under control," he muttered. "Doesn't look that way from here," Carla quipped. In the distance, the low whine of another siren could be heard. It wasn't loud yet, but the tone was rising. Closer, inevitable. Monica didn't look away from Walsh. She wanted him to remember her face, not as a threat, but as a mirror. A reminder of everything he'd tried to ignore. Every assumption he'd let harden into arrogance. Every ounce of unchecked power he'd worn like a second badge. "You're not used to being questioned," she said quietly, her voice barely audible beneath the wind. "That's the real problem, isn't it?" Walsh blinked, startled, not by volume but by precision. Before he could answer, a silver sedan rolled up. From it stepped Deputy Chief Raquel Jennings, her face unreadable behind aviator sunglasses. The moment her shoes hit pavement, the crowd parted. Walsh stiffened. "Chief, I was just—" Jennings held up a hand. "Not now." She turned to Monica, lowering her glasses slightly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I'm safe," Monica replied, "but I'm not fine." Jennings nodded once sharply. Then to her team, separate them. I want badge numbers, witness footage, and a full incident report filed within the hour. 2 uniformed officers gently stepped between Walsh and Monica, escorting him several yards away. He didn't resist, but the tension in his shoulders spoke volumes. Monica exhaled slowly. It wasn't over, but the tide had turned, not just in this moment, but in spirit. Carla leaned toward her. He's going to try to spin it. They always do. I don't care if he spins it, Monica said. I just care that everyone saw what actually happened. And they had. The witnesses weren't just recording, they were now talking, sharing, connecting the dots. One parent pulled up a post from a community board. Isn't this the same guy who got into it with a teenager last year at the rec center? Another teacher added, I remember that, they covered it up. Jennings turned to her assistant. Pull all prior complaints linked to Officer Walsh. I want them reviewed by end of day. The tension began to shift into something else, accountability. It was slow, but real. Monica turned to find her son still by the car, watching everything with wide eyes. She gave him a soft smile, motioning for him to wait just a bit longer. She wanted him to see this, not the conflict, but the consequence. Jennings approached once more. Colonel Carter, she said formally. Monica paused. That name hadn't been used in years, not in uniform, not since her discharge. But hearing it now, from a superior officer, grounded her. Yes, you've handled this with more poise than I've seen from some on my own force. I'd like you to file a full statement if you're willing, and, if you're open to it, we've been looking for a community liaison to help with training reform. Monica's eyes narrowed. You want me to help train the people who let this happen? Jennings didn't flinch. No, I want you to help prevent it from happening again. It was a small offer, but a significant one. Monica nodded. We'll talk. As Walsh was led toward the squad car, head down, someone in the crowd called out, Remember this face next time you reach for your badge? He didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Monica turned to Carla. Let's get Miles. Carla nodded. He just watched his mother change a system. No, Monica replied, walking toward her son, her stride steady and strong. He watched his mother refuse to be silenced, and the silence around the school was no longer fear. It was respect. The wind had picked up slightly, rustling papers and jackets as the afternoon sun slipped behind a row of clouds. But no one moved. The sidewalk in front of Jefferson Elementary had turned into something else. A courtroom without walls. Deputy Chief Jennings stood tall, her arms folded as she reviewed the live footage from 3 different witnesses' phones. Her expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened with every second. Officer Walsh sat on the curb now, no longer barking orders, no longer commanding space. He looked small, hunched, as though finally realizing the badge on his chest was not invincible. Monica stood a few feet away, silent. She wasn't watching him. She was watching the others. Parents huddled near her, some still shaking, others whispering. They weren't used to seeing consequences happen in real time. They weren't used to seeing the system respond. One of the internal affairs officers stepped forward, speaking quietly to Jennings. She nodded once, then turned to Walsh. Officer Walsh, she said, her voice clear. Please stand. He hesitated. I said stand. Slowly he got to his feet. His posture was stiff, unsure. This wasn't how he'd imagined his day ending. Effective immediately, Jennings continued. You are relieved of duty, pending formal investigation. The crowd murmured. Phones zoomed in. Monica's eyes remained steady, arms crossed, saying nothing, but her stillness was louder than any applause. You will surrender your service weapon, badge, and ID, Jennings added. An officer beside her stepped forward. For a moment, it looked like Walsh might resist. His hand hesitated near his sidearm, but then something broke in his stance. He unhooked the gun from his belt slowly, then, with a shaky hand, removed his badge and handed them over. His badge, once gleaming, now looked small, almost laughably so, in the officer's gloved hand. Jennings turned to the team. Escort him to precinct holding. I want full documentation filed within the next hour. 2 officers flanked Walsh and began guiding him toward the patrol car. He didn't speak. He didn't argue. For the first time, the weight of the moment had flattened his pride. And then a sound Monica didn't expect. Applause. It started with one parent, then another, then 5, then 15. Soon, the entire sidewalk was clapping, not out of celebration, but of recognition, of relief, that something finally had been seen. Carla leaned over, her voice low. "This doesn't happen, you know that, right? Not like this, not this fast." Monica nodded. "That's why I'm not smiling. Because while the reaction was satisfying, it was also rare. Justice, true justice, was usually delayed, diluted, or denied. But not today. Today it had cracked through. Jennings approached again. "Colonel Carter," she said, using the title again with deliberate care. "We've reviewed the footage and collected witness accounts. This case will be referred to the district attorney with a recommendation for suspension pending charges, including unlawful intimidation, misuse of authority, and failure to follow departmental conduct protocol." Monica didn't blink. "What about his history?" Jennings paused. "We've opened a parallel audit. If what the parents here are saying lines up with internal complaints, this won't stop with suspension." Good, Monica thought. Because one moment wasn't enough. It never was. As the squad car pulled away with Walsh inside, a group of children passed by on the far side of the school fence, watching curiously. Monica saw her son, Miles, staring silently from behind the gate. She waved once. He waved back. He didn't fully understand, not yet, but one day he would. Carla exhaled beside her. "You handled this like a general." Monica allowed a small smile to slip through. "Old habits." They turned to leave, but a hand gently touched Monica's arm. It was the same petite teacher who'd spoken up earlier. Her voice trembled slightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not walking away." Monica looked her in the eyes. "I didn't do it alone." "No," the teacher said, "but you were the first one to stay." Those words lingered in the air like a prayer, not shouted, just remembered. As they reached the car, Carla opened the passenger door, and Miles climbed into the back seat. He looked up at his mother with the kind of question only children could ask without words. "Are we safe?" Monica sat beside him and gently took his hand. "We are now." But even as she said it, she knew that safety wasn't a guarantee. It was a fight, one that required more than cameras and headlines. It needed courage, consistency, and a refusal to shrink, even when the world tried to make you small. As the car pulled away, Monica glanced back through the rear window. The school, the sidewalk, the parents who had stood beside her. One moment changed nothing, but it proved something. That silence can be broken, that power can be challenged, and that justice, when demanded, when insisted upon, can show up, even in front of a school, even in broad daylight, even when no one expects it. By nightfall, the video had reached 1 million views. What began as shaky footage on a parent's phone now filled news feeds across the country. Cable networks played it on loop. Headlines screamed across homepages. Mother confronts officer outside school, wins. Marine vet school's cop on the Constitution. Accountability, captured in real time. Monica Carter's name was everywhere. She didn't want it to be. At home, she sat at her kitchen table, phone turned face down, TV muted. Her son was asleep upstairs. Carla had gone home to handle press inquiries flooding their shared legal inbox. Monica had turned down every interview. Still, the messages kept coming. Texts from friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Emails from advocacy groups. Requests to speak at conferences. Offers for book deals, podcasts, even a streaming documentary. They wanted her story, her face, her voice. But Monica wasn't interested in being a symbol. She hadn't stood her ground that day to trend. She had done it because it was right, because silence had cost people like her too much for too long. But the world was watching now, and the ripples were growing. By the second day, more stories surfaced. A 17-year-old named Jaden released his own footage from a year ago. Same officer, same school, same intimidation. The video had never been published. His parents had been too scared. But now they were angry. Soon, others followed. A retired teacher spoke anonymously to local news, describing Officer Walsh's pattern of aggression, particularly toward children of color. An internal report leaked to the press revealed that at least 9 complaints had been filed against him in the last 3 years, none resulting in disciplinary action. The pressure became undeniable. By Friday morning, the mayor's office released a statement. What happened outside Jefferson Elementary is a reminder that our city must confront its blind spots. Officer Walsh has been suspended indefinitely pending a full investigation. We are reviewing all internal complaints connected to him and will initiate a department-wide audit. But that wasn't enough for the public. Rallies formed, parents marched, signs read, "Protect our kids, not your power." Monica spoke for all of us. Monica watched it unfold from her living room window. Neighbors she'd never met now holding her photo, chanting her name. She didn't feel powerful. She felt exposed. Carla called that afternoon. "You okay?" "I didn't ask for any of this," Monica said. "No, but maybe it asked for you." Monica didn't answer. She didn't like being elevated. She knew that heroes were just people who didn't walk away, and she'd seen what happened to people who got turned into headlines. The media would lift them up, then rip them down. But Carla pressed. "They need a face, Mon, not for ego, for courage." That night, Monica agreed to one interview with a small local station she trusted. She didn't wear makeup. She didn't prepare notes. She just told the truth. "I didn't do anything heroic," she said on camera. "I just didn't want my son to see me back down when someone abused their power." The clip spread even faster than the original video. Because it wasn't scripted, it wasn't polished, it was real. And real is what people were starving for. By the end of the week, Monica's inbox was overflowing with stories from across the country. Mothers, veterans, teachers, teenagers, people who'd stayed quiet when they shouldn't have, now writing to say, "Because of you, I spoke up. Because of you, I filed a complaint. Because of you, I said no." Monica didn't reply to every message. She couldn't. But she read every single one. And something inside her began to shift. She had spent so long just surviving injustice, bracing against it, avoiding its sharp edges. But now, something was blooming. A voice. A vision. Not for fame, not for revenge, but for responsibility. Because if people were finally listening, maybe it was time to say more. Not louder, just clearer. At the end of the week, Jefferson Elementary invited Monica to speak at a special assembly for parents, staff, and students. She almost declined. Then she saw her son rehearsing his presentation for class. "My mom is the bravest person I know." She said yes. On the day of the event, she stood in front of the auditorium. No spotlight, no teleprompter. Just a podium and a silence that asked her to begin. She didn't talk about the confrontation. Not directly. Instead, she spoke about choice. "The world may try to make you small," she said. "But the truth is, you don't have to raise your voice to be powerful. You just have to decide, when the moment comes, not to look away." The audience rose in applause, not for a hero, but for a mirror. Weeks passed. The headlines faded, the rallies quieted, and the camera crews moved on to newer stories. But Monica Carter remained. She wasn't chasing the spotlight. She never had. And now that it was gone, she felt lighter. The moment had come and gone, but its echo remained. At home, she returned to her usual rhythm, packing lunches, reviewing homework, walking miles to school. But something had changed. Not in the world, not yet, in her. Because for the first time in years, Monica didn't feel like she was just surviving. She felt like she was building. It started small. Emails from a few parents asking how to speak up during school board meetings. Then came an invitation to a town hall on policing reform. Then a request to help design a training module for new officers. Monica hesitated. She wasn't a public speaker. She didn't have a degree in social work or law enforcement. All she had was experience, but maybe that was enough. She said yes, and then she said yes again. Soon, she was speaking in gymnasiums, classrooms, police academies, not as a hero, but as a witness, to what happens when silence is broken, to what it means to stand in the middle of injustice and not flinch. One afternoon, after a school training session, a young officer approached her. Barely out of academy, badge still new. "I want to do better," he said, "but I don't always know how." Monica looked him in the eye. "Start by listening, then keep listening, especially when it's uncomfortable." That advice spread faster than she ever imagined. They started calling it the Monica rule. Listen first, especially when it's hard. She laughed when she heard it. I'm not a rule, she said to Carla one night. I'm just someone who didn't shut up. But Carla only smiled. Sometimes that's all it takes. Meanwhile, Officer Walsh's case proceeded. The charges stuck. So did the stories. Other victims came forward. Internal systems shifted. Small reforms took root in schools, precincts, and local councils. No revolution, but momentum. And Monica, she didn't go viral again. She didn't want to. Instead, she built something quieter. A local group, Mothers Who Won't Look Away. They met twice a month in a community center room with bad coffee and mismatched chairs. But what they shared in that space, stories, strategies, solidarity, was nothing short of powerful. They weren't shouting into microphones. They were training themselves, and each other, to be ready. For the moment when someone needed to stand still, speak clearly, refuse to shrink. At the end of one meeting, a woman named Janelle pulled Monica aside. I used to think I wasn't brave enough for this, she said. But then I saw you, and I realized I just needed someone to go first. That night, Monica sat alone in her backyard, wrapped in an old hoodie, listening to the wind rustling through the trees. She thought about this moment it all changed. Walsh's hand near his holster, her son watching from the fence, her own voice steady despite the shaking underneath. It hadn't felt brave at the time, it had just felt necessary. And maybe that's what courage really was. Not bold, not loud, just refusing to disappear. As stars blinked above her, Monica whispered to the dark, I didn't do it to be remembered. I did it so others wouldn't be forgotten. That was the mission now. No uniforms, no medals. Just a mother, teaching her son and the world that silence is not safety, that dignity is not optional, and that the smallest voice, when used with purpose, can carry farther than anyone expects.